So I thought it might be really helpful, especially given how divisive the Underhill bike boulevard has proven to be. And I think, frankly, a lot of that had to do with lack of discussion in the community generally. That maybe we turn to whoever can share the more specific information about this. That's the land use information is very detailed across a full spectrum of information, but only a very small and loose amount of it has to do with streetscape stuff. Yeah. So maybe the people who are familiar with what the steering committee has discussed with AAMUP would be more clear about and specify what the proposals are for the streetscape. I think that would be really helpful. I'm pretty sure there's some, if somebody is willing to step up and speak to that.
I mean, I did take notes of the meeting.
Well, I was at the land use meeting too, and there was no specifics. So there is I think there is a member of the steering committee here. So if somebody can actually be more specific about what the land use, the streetscape proposals are, that'd be helpful. Because I live on the street that this is information that was circulated on. If somebody outside of the committee had to circulate it, I still would be sitting here without that information. So it would be really helpful to have that information shared, and I'm making a request.
I second the motion for specifics.
Yeah, I don't recall, I was not on the steering committee. Ms. Maldonado?
Yeah, there was also mentioned at the last land use committee, there were some questions about the impact on sanitation and sewage and things like that, and the people who were there, they seemed to say like they had done like a preliminary analysis and that there was no impact whatsoever, but at the same time they didn't know. So I think given that we're also sanitation, we might want to note those concerns or impacts as well.
So I do have something concrete, which is part of the zoning resolution, which is that the Atlantic Avenue sub-area will have a requirement for buildings to set back 5 feet from their lot line in order to widen the sidewalk.
I can just clarify also so what's being discussed this is distributed by the Department of City Planning. So this is the Department of City Planning's proposal. As Crystal Hudson said at the end of and she said that the steering committee in my office, we have a community from the principals. So what I'm asking is for those principles, because we don't want, as a committee, it's my view that we don't want an elected official to maybe think that she's gotten great advice, but actually hasn't had any communication or consultation with the community, so to speak. There's no way, like I've gone to most of these EST committee meetings over the years. I missed the last couple, which is very, very rare for me. I'm a member of the land use committee. I attend almost every single one of those too. Same kind of a record. I've been part of many community organizations. Dean Street Block Association, helped found North Prospect Heights Association, and I was actually even on the board. I was one of the leaders of Brooklyn Speaks. And if the notion of a bike boulevard is existing for Dean Street, then that actually was something that Brooklyn Speaks, after I left it, proposed not too many years ago. So I think it would be very reasonable now to get specifics. And if there is a motion to be had, if we don't get the specifics in this meeting, the motion would be that I think that the committee send a message to Crystal Hudson at her office and the steering committee that it's unacceptable to move forward with any livable streets proposals without bringing them to the community first.
So let me just thank you for that. And I can second, if anybody doubts it, you have been a stalwart in this community for as long as I've known you. So thank you.
Stalwart. No, seriously, genuinely.
No, you've shown up.
Right? I've been flexible.
Yeah. No, I just mean you do the work, and I appreciate that. To your very final point about what are we accomplishing here tonight, I wanted to contextualize what I want to get at tonight. Because first of all, I had no idea if we'd have a quorum. So there was a plan A and a plan B. Plan A is we can discuss AAMUP. I'd like to spend the next 45 minutes on it at the max, and come up with something we vote on. But we could also do Plan B, which is just start a discussion tonight. Because the timeline on the streetscape improvements is not the same clock as the land use improvements. The land use element is on the Euler plot. The streetscape elements are, to a degree that I do not fully understand, tied in but separate. And the word that I've gotten from the board office is that if we can resolve those by the vote in the spring, in the late winter spring, that's our real timeline for our work. But I would love to strike while the iron is hot, and while the board is focused on AAMUP writ large, our voice should be heard at next month's meeting where the full board takes up the Euler land use elements of it.
So I'm perfectly willing to modify the kind of motion that I was describing and say that there can be, that we require anything that's being reviewed to have timelines and have a specific kind of community process, with the community having the ability to say yay or nay. And I think what I recall is that with the AAMUP presentation, it said something to the order of, there will be Atlantic Avenue, and by the way, Atlantic Avenue needs to be adjusted significantly to absorb the changes of density. There's no question about it. Pedestrians have to be number one, in my view. But at the end of the day, Dean Street, Bergen Street, Atlantic Avenue, all the others, those changes, they are very significant, and they are going to involve a lot of capital investment that the city is going to have to commit to, at least in some form, with some degree of an agreement, before you, because I have to imagine that the city council member, or there's several city council members involved, they're going to say, we need these commitments in writing, because we've all been through this when the things aren't written very well. So there's no way that they're going to be a few, in spring or fall without some pretty clear things established in advance. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's really time for us to hear what these proposals are, and I really, actually, frankly, kind of resent having to hear from somebody, a community member's email that Dean and Bergen could be bike boulevards, and when we spoke earlier today, you did suggest that that comes out of the AAMUP steering committee.
Yeah.
So I think, again, I just want to circle back around to the fact that if there's a member of the steering committee here to speak to this, and to speak to what is actually being proposed, that would be to at least the geographic areas and the type. Is it accurate that Dean and Bergen are going to be bike boulevards? That's a fair question. I mean, so that's
Is
very
there a
simple,
steering committee
is
member?
as a proposal from AAMUP, but that's reasonable to ask.
What would be the range of that? Would that be the breadth of the community board?
Imagine that's up for discussion.
So that would be from Flatbush Avenue to Ralph Avenue?
The AAMUP goes.
So let's follow back on what Peter's saying, right? So this is a document that was issued, and help me out here, somewhere in 2023. This is a compilation of the working group recommendations that came out of the various Crystal Hudson hosted working group meetings a winter or two ago, right? The yellow ones roughly are the ones we're concerning ourselves with tonight. And only the yellow ones in the Community Board 8. So they have such things as make Atlantic Avenue a safe and comfortable street for pedestrians, improve the connectivity and safety of the area's bicycle infrastructure, right? I'm just reading the bullet points here. Increase public transit, et cetera, et cetera. Specifically, here are how to make Atlantic Avenue safe, right? Redesign the avenue, put it on a road diet, the sidewalk improvements, curbside management, priority intersections. If you have travel on Atlantic Avenue east of Pennsylvania Avenue, for example, that's a possible model for what they're talking about here. Crossings, freight solutions. Now these have been out in the public dialogue for a year and a half now. Working group recommendation 2, improve bicycle travel connectivity. Bike boulevards on Bergen and Dean Street. Protected bike lane on Bedford. Working group recommendation 3, combine Lowry and Underhill into one park. 4, kind of the things that get parky are not us. Parks have their own committee here. Improve reliability and frequency of bus and subway, the C train, the B44, the B49 are called out, et cetera, right? I read these when I first saw it a year and a half ago as exactly what I say here tonight, that these are the product of working group as suggestions. You asked me tonight, is there a proposal? And I said, as far as I'm concerned, this does not amount to a proposal. This is, but I don't know that for a fact, to your very excellent question. Is this a proposal? Mr. Thurton, Ms. Balsamo, Mr. Ross, Mr. Morano. Ross. Geez. One of you has to leave, I'm sorry. Ross and Ross, I keep listening.
Your has had a hand up for a while.
Oh, you did. I apologize. Ms. Ortiz-Joyner.
Yes, to Peter's point, I also live on one of the streets mentioned. So for clarity, for some of us who may not know, because we already have bike lanes on those streets, what exactly is a bike boulevard?
Oh, a bike boulevard, let's come back to that, because I wanna get the process stuff done first, before we get down to the specifics. I appreciate the question, but let's drill down to that.
But I agree with Pete. I mean, as a community board, the community board needs to be informed. I mean, we shouldn't be waiting for it to be at the tail end for it to be brought to our table. This is an ongoing process, so this ongoing process, it should be brought to our community board, and we should be able to see what's going on that. And we definitely need to ask them to come to us. It's not on a one-time basis. They need to come to us and see what the process is going on, because we are representing the community board. We are representing the community, and we don't want just a few people that's involved with it to make a selection or make a decision that's going to impact everyone. So we definitely need our voice to be heard, and they need to come to us and present what's going on a 6 month, 3 months, or yearly basis on the progress or what the ideas that they have going on, so that we can see it, report to our community, and vote on it as time goes on.
Thank you. Ms. Balsamo?
I just want to follow up on Peter's comments, because the email he's referencing is one that I sent out to our coalition, and we got that information from the community board. So we didn't know that that was happening either. We had a conversation with the administration, and they said that it was their understanding that a bike boulevard or a protected bike lane was being proposed for Bergen and Dean, which we can't find anywhere in the proposal either. It just says traffic calming. However, what Peter was saying at the meeting that we had for land use, Crystal Hudson did say at the end, what you've seen here is DCP's version, but we have a community plan that we're going to push to get this version closer to. So we want to know, does that community plan, and I think that's why you're asking for the people who are on the steering committee, and I think there is someone I know in this room on the steering committee, if they could talk about what these traffic calming issues are. If they're uncomfortable with that, then I think people need to be aware that the Underhill Bike Boulevard has caused a lot of consternation, as everybody knows, in the community. So we just don't want to repeat that process with Bergen and Dean, and make sure, to Mark's point, that there's a transparent, thorough process before it's just slipped onto the community. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you. Hold on. Mr. Ross?
Yep.
Anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, who was in the land use meetings or the AAMUP presentation last week. As far as AAMUP is concerned, I'm pretty sure there is no direct proposals regarding bike lanes, bike boulevards, bike changes. It's strictly around zoning in the different areas. The traffic calming measures that are mentioned there, I believe we're referencing daylighting, raised crosswalks, etc. And I think it's somewhere in this presentation that Rob has up now. Like, just to be clear, and I think someone from CPC was there saying like all these recommendations, because there were a lot of questions around, okay, what about subway capacity? What about bus capacity? If you have more housing here, how do you account for this? And the recommendation, which I agree with, is sort of like when we're giving the recommendation from the board, raising these concerns, raising the recommendations of, okay, if we're going to make these zoning changes, this is what we need in terms of transit changes. This is what we need in terms of bike changes. That's a separate process for like bike boulevard proposal. That's not a part of AAMUP as far as.
Just a quick follow-up. Yeah, we understand that, but we're specifically saying that Crystal Hudson said that this plan is different from the community plan. So we're wondering where the bike boulevard idea came from, because the community board told us that was a plan, so where did it come from?
Just to answer that one a little bit, the community board office's line to me from the get-go has been, that other slideshow that I had up there should be treated as the proposal, the plan.
The community
Now, I have
plan.
no basis beyond the office telling me that for knowing that. DCP has never said that's our plan. They didn't say so at the land use meeting the other night, I presume.
No, they
Right.
did not.
No,
So-
but Crystal did say
Here's
there were
a suggestion
changes.
for proceeding here tonight, right? So CPC, City Planning, has presented, and I'm gonna walk through a few of these slides, and again, anyone who was there and then look at the slides, please help me elaborate on them. If we come out of here with comments tonight, I propose that they say whatever we feel about whatever's in here, and that there be a clause that says, and anything that wasn't discussed, we preemptively do not support yet, right? So if it isn't in this presentation, we are not, to Peter's point, deeming it a proposal. It's not ripe.
To my understanding, there are points of agreement from the steering committee. So we don't know what those points of agreement are. And so I think it makes sense to include in whatever, if you're gonna specify that those points of agreement should be brought to the community before any negotiation. You can phrase it how you want, but what it is negotiation between the city council member and the administration, and the city council itself and the administration. So we want we want those points of agreement to be brought here so that we know what they are. I mean, I can't see how. I mean, I understand that there was this process.
We may well love each and every one of those, but we haven't seen them, they're not before us, we need to say, we can't support them yet.
And I believe, living on a block that has 1,400 new units of housing, that you have to totally, and plus 2 entrances to open space and a large gym, that you definitely need to rethink how those streets function. But you actually need people who live in those kind of environments to participate. And there are, can I ask, how many people in this room live on that kind of a block with, say, 1,000 units of housing on it? So just a few. Yeah, you have to be able to conceive of what happens. People are gonna be crossing the middle of the block. You definitely need to emphasize and make more comfortable pedestrians especially. So, let's have some form of exposure to the points of agreement if those exist.
All right, let me go take a couple more comments, questions, and then we'll return to this. So I have Mr. Morano, I see Mr. Atkins, and I see Ms. Gray. So in that order, Mr. Morano.
So I don't think that points of agreement exist and they're being withheld. Maybe that's naive, but I think when those are decided upon, they'll go through the community board as part of the ULIP process. To a lot of the other points made tonight, maybe we should create our own recommendations, our own streetscape recommendations, so that we're proactive about this instead of being responsive, and maybe that might quell some of the feelings of uneasiness about this if we get out in front of it and say this is what we want to see.
Mr. Atkins, then Ms. Gray, then Ms. Tahal, and then Mr. Beal.
So I'm confused, but I haven't been up to date on this for quite some time. I'm still puzzled that you rejected discussing what a bike boulevard was.
I haven't rejected it, I postponed it till when we get to the substance.
Now, I didn't say, did I say rejected?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Balsamo has it on tape.
Yeah.
I do.
I don't care, I can stand correction. The point is that if you're going to be discussing it, I would think that it would be fulsome to understand what it is that we're discussing as we're going forward, rather than having, okay.
But it's a for instance. Think of it as an example. It could be we're discussing moving the bus lines around. It could be we're discussing moving, parking entrances around. Whatever it is, we need to know what the protocol is before we can discuss it rationally.
That's why you tabled it, right?
Ms. Gray.
No, I'm not done. Whoa.
Mr. Atkins, I have to move the meeting,
I
I'm sorry.
understand, but I didn't get, so we're talking, if you're talking about Dean Street and Bergen Street, which are also bus lines, and the gentleman's talking about 1,000 unit housing, which is sitting along Dean Street, if I'm not wrong. Okay, so then what you're saying, and he's making a valid point about the fact that there are people going to be trying to navigate that, but then also being affected by whether or not it's going to be a bus route, a bike route, or what, or how you're going to change transit in that area. And then the fact that there's existing infrastructure in this community and this board, and now what you're doing is, the bike lanes were instituted under Mayor Bloomberg, and I was upset about that. This is the tail wagging the dog, and this is the camel's nose under the tent, and everything is being flipped around after decades and decades, and I'm still here, my children are still here, my grandchildren will be here, and I'm watching how all these insidious changes, and I'm using the word insidious, are being gradually eased in. If housing is needed and the infrastructure is needed, and people are saying in other meetings that all of the water, sewage, electricity, gas, and everything else is going to be adequate. And if the western end of the district has gotten bifurcated sewage lines so that the sewage is, you don't need bioswales in case of massive.
Mr. Atkins, I'm sorry, but you know, you make good points.
Okay.
Go, wait a minute, hold it. No, stop.
I still have the floor, and
no,
you
you
did
don't,
not.
because I just took it. I'm sorry.
So,
but you're
okay, so then I'm
going
null and void.
You're going
void.
off on a tangent. You're going and talking and bringing in so many things into this discussion. People have made a point of coming out during a holiday. We need to stick to the issue on the table. And I'm sorry to have to cut you off like that, but you have valuable information, but it's too much. Let the chair direct the meeting, and let's get to the concrete business at hand.
So then what's going to happen? So what is the Bible for?
We'll get to that when we get to that. Ms. Gray.
No.
Okay, one of the things I was at the land use meeting last week, and one of the things I feel about what was explained is that this delaying of the street situation is going to be part of the confusion that was experienced on the Hill. It has to be included in the planning of everything, because these are people who are going to be using those streets. So delaying the street situation until spring is not really uniting the change. The change, it has to be included, because those people living there will be impacted. And to avoid confusion, they need to come up right now, instead of pushing it off, with how is this going to all be incorporated from both sides, whether it's the community proposal and the AAMUP proposal, it all has to come and make sense.
I agree. Ms. Tate Hall?
Okay, the main thing that bothered me that night, the same people, 2 people, came to our meeting, our general meeting, and they were representing City of Yes. Now, all of a sudden, they've come now to represent city planning. Okay? That didn't make much sense to me. 2, if they're talking about changing up Dean and Bergen, it seems like everybody has forgotten that a high school is going up down there. Mm-hmm.
So we have that problem too to think about. You're gonna have kids on the street, so when they mentioned that in the beginning, they said that they were gonna reroute traffic. How can you reroute traffic for the bus? How can you?
They're moving it to Atlantic.
To answer your first question, City of Yes is a city planning initiative, so it is right and proper for the same people to be supporting both initiatives.
It was kind of strange because remember when they came in, they showed us this map that was yellow, and it took up all of CB8's area. And then now they're coming in and they're saying something else.
It was a special meeting land use.
We need more information.
Okay. Ms. Young? Okay. 1 second.
Okay.
Maybe it would be instructive. I think we've aired a lot of process stuff here. And I agree with a lot of the points I've heard about we don't have enough information about what exactly it is we need to talk about. But we do have some information that is concretely labeled, as you see down here, proposal. So maybe we can spend the next few minutes walking through a few slides that are the streetscape related proposals and talking through them. And then we can come back and expand back up again to the big picture. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Chair. I just wanted to know, I don't want to disturb this. I'm here on behalf of the Wooded Bible Temple in reference to a street company. And I was told to come tonight. I just want to know, are we on the agenda at all?
I wasn't told you were coming. I have to apologize profusely.
I just wanted to know if we would possibly be heard tonight or not. She asked that I come tonight.
Oh,
They weren't on the agenda.
they weren't on the agenda.
I don't see it.
But they were told to
It
come.
could have been an oversight.
Well,
What, you spoke to, you spoke to the board office today?
She emailed me, Ms. Neal, she had emailed me, she asked that I come tonight. We were before you back,
Yes.
June 25th.
yes.
I mean, did they follow up with you, or you followed up
I
with
followed up
them?
with them. We were told we would be called back for September. We never got that call, so I reached back out. She asked me to come in October. We weren't available, so she said, hey, you come tonight. Because they wanted to kind of put this to bed, before they could.
Okay, cause we thought you was gonna come last month also.
Yes, but when I spoke with her, she apologized. I have the email right in front of me. She apologized for late notice. We didn't receive a notice. We were actually out of the country that week, that particular week. So that she asked her to come tonight. So I know, we have one of our local bishops that was here also to speak to the matter. So I just wanted to know before, I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's irregular, but I will throw it to the committee to make a motion to dispose of this item tonight if we wanted to. Mr. Morano?
I'll make a motion
To
to hear the street coding.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna take a timeout from AAMUP. We're not gonna give you the time you deserve. I apologize for that ahead of time. But, as you see, this is you, right? Our church has been a member and an active part of the Crown Heights community for over 50 years. In 1973, our church moved into the community